We have reviewed the top 5 ETF to invest in the Japanese economy, as well as how to invest as a foreigner living in Japan. And today we are looking at the top 5 mutual funds to invest in the Japanese economy, the third largest in the world. And there is a lot of upside with the Japanese economy. If we start just with the stock market, it had a great run last year. There are regulatory changes such as the reduction of the trading lots or split of the stock to make it easier for retail investors to get their foot in the door. But that's not all. The traditional cross shareholding for mega corporations are being untangled, freeing a lot of capital and increasing the return on equity and the return for shareholders. Global investors have noticed and they are pouring money in the Japanese stock market, and there's a lot of upside from an economic standpoint. This is going to increase the earnings from the Japanese companies and obviously pushing up all the indexes. But that's not all, because we are in January and it means that the NISA, the Nippon Investment Saving Account, has seen its biggest changes. Indicates this is going to free hundreds of billions of dollars, yes, billion with a B, from the savings accounts that are going to move to the stock market, that are going to push as well a lot. So that's why I'm so excited to be with you here today. And whether you want to invest in Japanese yen or invest in USD, I have funds for you today. All those funds are coming from top tier institutions and they would be great for a buy and hold strategy to help you achieve your financial goals. I invest myself for my own portfolio with the same products because they have great upside as well as low expense ratio. My name is Yoram from Economia. Welcome back to the channel and let's get started with fund number 1. The SAI Japan Stock Index from Fidelity invests at least 80% of its money into companies including in a MSCI Japan Index. What is the MSCI Japan Index, you might ask? Here you are. It's about 225 companies and represent the large and mid-cap companies of the Japanese stock market. Its holdings are pretty obvious, companies that you know already, and it's quite a large fund that has had good performances in the past few years, and as you can see, quite low expense ratio. Number 2 is also from Fidelity. It's Japan's smaller companies, and this one, as the name indicates, is looking at mid to smaller caps and really is trying to see from capital growth and long-term growth. The holdings, you probably don't know most of them. They are smaller companies or less well-known outside of Japan, but here again, low expense ratio and a lot of very positive upside. Let's continue with number 3, the Japan Equity Income Fund from Aberdeen, a smaller fund compared to the other ones, and his goal is to outperform the Topix over the long run. What is the Topix? Topix is one of the biggest indexes of the Japanese stock market, and you can see a definition now on screen. It's very large, and what they're trying to do is choose a better weighted investment to try to outperform it. So I'm not showing you the holdings because it's really large. There are many companies there, but it's an interesting one to play on the indexes. Number 4 is the Japanese small company portfolio from Dimensional. This one is a little bit special because this one is a feeder fund. What's a feeder fund? It's basically a fund that gets all the money from the investors and invests it in a master fund that actually does the investment. So it's a two-step process, and it's investing in a lot of smaller companies that maybe you haven't heard about. I'm showing them to you on screen. If you live in Japan, you've seen some of them, but they are really small to mid-size and they have a lot of possible upside like all the small cap funds. So quite interesting here as well, a little bit bigger than the previous fund and still a relatively small expense ratio. Number 5 is the Usonian Japan Value Creation Fund by GMO. That's a mouthful. This fund basically is trying to invest 80% of its assets to companies tied economically to Japan and the rest to other companies. What is really interesting is they're concentrating only on 50 companies and really trying to get a total return on that, meaning appreciation plus dividend. You can look at its holdings, bigger companies, some you have seen before, I guess, some you don't know, but also very interesting, quite in the small size as well, but bigger than the previous 2 and very low expense ratio as well. So here you go, the top 5 mutual funds in USD that you can try to invest in the Japanese market. And I chose those specifically because they have low expense ratio. You can find others from bigger companies that have expense ratio over 1%. I hope it was interesting. If it was interesting so far, please give a like. Don't hesitate to subscribe for more contents like that. drop something in the comments to tell me you've liked this first part. Now we're going to go into the second part that's talking about funds that are denominated in Japanese yen that are actually controlled and managed by Japanese institutions. What makes Japanese yen denominated mutual funds very special is that they're usually quite big, they've been established for a long time, they have low expense ratios, and they are also eligible for the NISA account, which is the local equivalent of the ISA or IRA, depending on where you live. You're going to see the size, you're going to be really surprised. We're going to start with number one, which is the Emax Slim Topics from MUFJ, which happened to be the bank where I have one of my accounts. So MUFJ is one of the biggest banks in the world, so you can go completely sure in there. Let's see. So as the name indicates, it replicates the topics index that we've just talked about. I'm putting the definition here again on the screen. You can see how big this fund is. You can see how low the expense ratio is. And if you look at the performance in the last few years, it obviously replicates the performance of the topics. You are investing in one of the largest mutual funds available here, and you can go and have a ride exactly replicating the Japanese market. Number two is the i3 Topics Index from Daiwa. Daiwa Securities and Daiwa Asset Management is one of the biggest stockbroker. It's a smaller asset management player in Japan. You can see the top listed here. It's not there, but it's still a very reputable company, and as the name indicates, it replicates the topics. So it provides similar performances as the previous fund. Very low expense ratio, smaller fund overall, but also a good fund to try to invest in the market. Let's continue to number three. i3 GPX Nikkei 400, again from Daiwa. As the name indicates, this one is also an index, but the index is the Nikkei 400, one of the major indexes. You can see the definition on the screen. It's specialized in the top 400 companies that have global appeal, that have very good reputation and are very safe for investors, and it replicates this index again. Not one of the largest funds, but good performance overall, as you can see, and again, very low expense ratio. I'm not putting all the holdings because you will have a 400 line. That would be a lot there. Again, a good bet. And we continue to number four. Tawara No Load Nikkei 225 fund is a fund from Asset Management One, one of the largest asset management companies in Japan, and the Nikkei 225 is the key index of the Japanese stock exchange. When you hear about the Japanese stock exchange and they give you a number, they are talking about the Nikkei 225. This is the crème de la crème, this is your equivalent of the Dow Jones, the top 225 companies on the stock market that are the most profitable, the most reputable, the one you know about. You can see the performance over the past years, so quite an interesting one. And the name No Load is a very Japanese way of saying very low expense ratio. Again, a very safe one. And we're gonna go to the number five, which also replicates the Nikkei 225, but this one is from Daiwa. The i3 Nikkei 225 index from Daiwa, then again, it replicates exactly the Nikkei 225 and try to do the same, and that's why you have the same performance as the previous fund. A little bit smaller fund, but still a good fund with low expense ratio. Here you go, your top 5 mutual funds denominated in Japanese yen. As you can see, very large fund, very low expense ratio, and all are index focused. So a lot of choices if you have Japanese yen to invest. As we've seen, the Japanese economy has a lot of upside, and its stock market as well. I hope those USD denominated and Japanese yen denominated mutual funds give you good options for your long-term buy and hold investment. If that's the case and you like this video, please give it a like and do not hesitate to subscribe for more content to come. And if you would like me to do another top 5 based on Japan, please leave a comment down below. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.